Hi, I'm Kathryn Royer. I'm here today with Grady Gammage, who used to be the president of the CAP board when I was working there, way back when, in the late 90s and early 2000s. Today, Grady and I are talking about the current status of water supplies, as well as some planning and zoning issues in Arizona. Hi, Grady.
Hi, good to
Glad
see you.
to have you. Thank you so much. Let's just start out from the top, what everybody's kind of concerned about. How has our state protected our Colorado River water supplies, and are we doing a good job?
So I've told people for years, when you see all those lists where Arizona is near the bottom, how much money we spend on education, how many teenage pregnancies we have, how many shootings occur, there are lots of things where Arizona doesn't look good compared to a lot of other states. The list where we've always been near the top is in water management. We are as good as it gets at managing water because we've had to be. We did the Groundwater Management Act that required a 100-year assured supply for subdivisions. When California had a 0 assured supply, they now have a 25-year supply to do a subdivision. Most states don't have limitations on groundwater pumping. The question is, who's got the strongest pump? That's who wins. Texas is famous for that, for example. So it's not even like in the arid West, everybody does a great job. We have historically done the best job. We have banked more water underground against times of shortage, like we're in right now. We have for the urban spine core of Arizona, we have about 10 years worth of water. Total, no other inputs. Colorado goes dry, Salt River goes dry, nothing else. We have about 10 years worth of water supply in the bank. Now, here's the problem. The years in which we were able to put water in the bank are gone. We're not taking it out yet, but we're not going to put any more in. And if you look into the future at where we stand now with regard to the Colorado River in particular, there are reasons to be concerned. It's not, people think that means they're going to turn on the tap and it's going to go dry. For the most part, in the larger cities of Arizona, that is not the case. I can't speak to Cave Creek exactly. I know you're in a different...
We banked water, thankfully.
Yeah, my sense is I think Cave Creek's probably in pretty good shape. But if you were talking about Phoenix or Mesa or Glendale, they have vast and diversified water portfolios. The taps are not going to go dry. But we're going to have to start to make much tougher choices than we've made in the past about how we use water.
And in terms of what? Conservation?
In terms of what kind of uses we want to encourage. As you know, there's been a lot of controversy about data centers. You're not going to have any data centers in Cave Creek. I wouldn't worry about that if I was in Cave Creek. But in all the bigger cities in the valley, that's become a big issue because they use a lot of water for very few jobs. Now, they're getting more efficient. The data centers are not as bad at hogging water as they were when they were first built, but it's still a pretty water-intensive use. So if you're a city, do you want to encourage that kind of use? Do you want to encourage golf courses? Probably not going to see a lot of new golf courses built in the next few years. The big question is what happens to agriculture. Is do we keep farming in central Arizona, and beyond that, how much farming can we sustain along the Colorado River? That's still where most of our water goes. Most of the state's water, about 70% of it still goes to agriculture. We can't keep doing everything the way we've done it in the past, which is kind of to assume that we have enough water to cover everything. We probably don't going forward.
So we'll make those tough choices at what level?
Well, and that is a big question. The whole question of who decides, how do they decide, and how long does it take, and how does it get implemented, is what we're really grappling with now. I mean, one option is you let the market operate. You just decide, okay, water is going to go to the people who can pay the most. That's going to protect urban uses. That's going to protect chip manufacturing. It's probably going to protect data centers. It's not going to protect golf courses, and it's not going to sustain farming. So if you want to sustain farming, you wouldn't say just let the market decide. And in fact, the way our legal system is set up, that's not the way it operates anyway. The way the water rights are set up, it's different. I tell people who are in municipal government, you're used to seeing the way land use decisions are made, which is that somebody brings you a proposal to build something, and you weigh the rights of them as property owners as to whether they should be allowed to do this against the opinion and the impact it has on neighbors. And it's a balance, you sort of look at the desires of the one versus the wishes of the many, and you sort it out and you decide what should happen and you vote on it. That's not how water works. Water has always been this historical commodity that was used to encourage the settling of the West, used by the federal government primarily when they set up the Bureau of Reclamation, to get people to move to the West and farm. To do that, we assured them some right. And that system that assures them rights continues to this day. So the collision between the way water decisions are made and the way growth decisions are made is exactly where we are right now. Those two things are running into each other. And we haven't really yet fully figured out how we transact that tension.
How are the farmers reacting to these changes?
So it depends. For years, we were in a better position than two of our neighboring states, California or Colorado, because we tended to farm in the same area that houses were building. So if you think about the Saltwater Project and CAP ultimately brought water to the Sun Corridor, the urban spine of Arizona from Phoenix to Tucson. Well, because of the Saltwater Project and because of the historic Native American irrigation systems that preceded it, that's where we farmed. And so as we urbanized, those farms would move to being subdivisions. And any farmer will regard a production home subdivision as the highest and best crop he can possibly grow. It makes way more money than alfalfa or cotton. So there's been a natural marriage in Arizona that was not the case in California, where people live on the coast and farmers are in the Central Valleys, or in Colorado, where it's one side of the Rockies and the other. Here, we all get along relatively well. Those days are gone. Central Arizona is pretty well urbanized. The only farming that's going to survive probably in Central Arizona is on the Indian reservations. And so now we face the question of what happens to the farming along the river, where there isn't the same pressure to urbanize. The Yuma, Parker, Havasu are not growing at the rate metropolitan Phoenix is. So there's the question of whether or not more of their water should be shifted to Central Arizona.
So, can we talk about the 7 states for a moment? Are you involved at all in those discussions?
No, I hear a lot about it. I am not. I'm really kind of
Semi-retired.
pretty much retired.
Yes.
At this point, yeah.
But we all observe.
Right.
And we have opinions.
Right.
Who's right, who's wrong. And, obviously we hope that the lower basin states will prevail in some fashion. But what's your perspective? What do you think is going to fall out?
So, the lower basin states, California, Nevada, Arizona. The upper basin states are Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, and Wyoming. And a little piece of Arizona is in the upper basin. It actually splits at Lee's Ferry, so there's a little bit of Arizona in the upper basin. And when the Colorado River Compact was cut, the upper basin got 7.5 million acre feet, and the lower basin got 7.5 million acre feet, and Mexico got 1.5 million, and there isn't that much water in the river. There probably never was historically. It's severely overallocated. For years, it didn't matter because the upper basin wasn't developed enough to take their 7.5 million. And they're still not. They still don't need their 7.5 million. In the lower basin, on the other hand, California took everything for a long time until we started needing more. And Nevada doesn't get very much. Nevada kind of got screwed in the negotiation because they didn't have any farmers. The reason Nevada only got 300,000 acre feet, despite being on the river, is there were no farmers looking out for their interests. It was, gamblers, mafia, and divorce lawyers. That's all there was in Nevada in those days. And so Arizona didn't like a whole lot about the Colorado River Compact and the split we got 2.8 million of the 7.5. But for a long time it didn't matter because there was enough extra water in the system that there was no real point in fighting over it too much. Well, there's not anymore. And so the problem right now is that the way the lower basin reads the compact is that the upper basin has to deliver to us a guaranteed minimum measured over a 10-year span of that 7.5 million. We say that's a guarantee, that if it falls below that, they have to deliver that to us. They don't think that. The question is, as the climate and meteorology doesn't deliver enough water for the 7.5 upper and the 7.5 lower, do we have to share that kind of natural shortfall? Or does the upper basin still have to deliver the guaranteed numbers to the lower basin? We say the compact says they have to do that. And they say, no, that's only the case if there's enough water there to do it. It's not really a guarantee. And I think we're right. And I think a lot about the history of the compact when it was negotiated says we're right. But how do you resolve that? So there's a proposal right now to get a mediator to try to mediate that, which is the way you would solve a private dispute like that. The only other way to do it is to go to court. And if the Central Arizona Project, for example, could sue, they would have to sue in federal district court.
Which they've done.
Yes, which they've done
when
before.
You were the president.
Yes. I was on the witness stand in that lawsuit for a couple of days, actually. That would work its way up through the federal court system, the U.S. Supreme Court. And CAP might do that. CAP has, this is public knowledge, has set aside tens of millions of dollars to litigate if necessary. The other way to litigate would be for Arizona to sue one or more of the other upper basin states. That lawsuit goes directly to the U.S. Supreme Court. The only instance really of original jurisdiction in the U.S. Supreme Court is when one state sues another. In Arizona versus California, the legendary case that resulted in our getting the rights we wanted to the Colorado River was that kind of original jurisdiction. Well, the Supreme Court can't listen to witnesses. They don't find facts. They just hear arguments. So if that happened, they would appoint a special master who would be probably a retired judge to hear the case or something like that. So one way or another, you'd have to get into court. Now, the latest thing, as I understand it, that is happening is that the federal government has said they're willing to make hundreds of millions of dollars available to try to mitigate this problem. But Mike Lee, senator from Utah, Upper Basin, has said, well, if any of the states sue, I'm going to object and we're going to withhold that money. So now we're being coerced into not going to court about this. The big political picture as we see it, I think, is that the Trump administration isn't very interested in this issue. Trump is not. The Secretary of the Interior is from North Dakota. That's not an Upper Basin state, but it's adjacent to Upper Basin states. It's an Upper Basin kind of place. And there are senators, Mike Lee being one, John Barrasso being another, in the Upper Basin who talk to the Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, probably more than our senators do. And unfortunately, in the Lower Basin, we are lumped in with California. California is, to the Trump administration, the enemy. They are evil. And even though we're not California, we kind of get lumped in there. So we're not sure we're getting fair treatment from the federal government at the moment.
How do you think it might end?
The most likely resolution will be something that kicks the can down the road for another couple of years. And it may kick it down the road for only 2 years, it might kick it down the road for 5 years. This is actually silly, but if the super El Nino that's predicted develops this year, we'll all breathe a big sigh of relief. Now, the reason that's silly is one wet year in the scheme of the over-allocation of the river isn't really meaningful, but it makes us all feel better. If it rains a lot, we'll all get more comfortable and we'll feel like, oh, okay. If we could show that bathtub ring picture that you see of Lake Powell, if it was rising, we'd all start to relax a little bit. So if I had to guess, I would guess there'll be some deal cut that kicks it down the road for a couple of years. The federal government will kick in some money. That money will be used to talk some farmers into fallowing and taking less water. And that will put enough water back into the system that we'll feel okay for a couple of years.
Is that something like what the lower basin states put together?
Yes, it is. I mean, it that's already happened to a significant
But it hasn't been
degree.
approved by the feds.
Right.
So we're waiting on that. Last question, Grady, about growth. How do you envision Phoenix growing, or even the state of Arizona growing any more? Are we continuing to add thousands and millions of people to our state? And how will we manage that?
Well, these are related issues. The publicity about the drought and climate change and the Colorado River and the Western water crisis, coupled with, we didn't talk about what the Department of Water Resources has done about the use of groundwater and a sort of reinterpretation of the 100-year assured supply and that they did. All of that has resulted in extreme unease in the market for Arizona as a destination. I think that's unfortunate. I am a pro-growth person. I grew up here. I've lived here most of my life, except for going away to college and graduate school. And I think, particularly in the last decade, Arizona has gotten much smarter and more strategic about its growth. We don't so much anymore just regard the number of new houses built as the mark of success. For most of my career, we did. That was it. That was what mattered. How many new housing starts do we have this year? Is it more than 50,000? If it's more than 50,000, we feel great. If it's less, we've moved away from that. We started being much more focused on the number of jobs that are created and the quality of those jobs and the location of those jobs. So I feel good about the way Arizona has reshaped its definition of growth and the way it has reshaped its management of growth. But there are some implications to that, some of which would not be consistent with the way Cave Creek sees itself. Mm-hmm. Cave Creek is a lower density lifestyle community. Mm-hmm. And that's fine, because it's a small town, that's fine. But you may be aware the legislature has passed a lot of things now to encourage higher density development. Accessory dwelling units added to single family home parcels, infill, higher density, all those kinds of things. Those kinds of things are, in the grand scheme of the growth of Metro Phoenix, good and necessary. If for no other reason, because that is a more efficient way to use water than extreme low density growth. Now, Cave Creek is different than some other lower density cities like Paradise Valley. Paradise Valley is a low density city, but a lot of people have pretty lush landscaping. Yeah. That is, and there are a lot of golf courses. That is maybe not long-term the best way to do things. Cave Creek, people live in the desert. And that's good and understandable. But for Phoenix to continue to grow, it's going to have to increase its density over time. And Phoenix proper, the city of Phoenix, has been becoming more dense over time. And that's more efficient both from a transportation standpoint and a water use standpoint. And we've become, as I said earlier, much more selective about the kind of industry we encourage. But back to water, we have to get people both inside Arizona and outside Arizona to understand that the water challenges we face don't mean we have to stop growing. but it means we have to make much more careful and selective decisions about how we grow.
And that'll do it.
Okay.
Thank you. Wait, I've got my clothes.
Okay.
Thank you for joining me today, Grady. We certainly appreciate your perspectives. You've been around a long time. You know your stuff, and we value everything you've said. Thank you.